How's it going, everybody? He's Tony George. I'm Scott Spreitzer. We are DocSports.com, and we are right here at the Red Rock Station Casino in the Racing Sportsbook, man. One of my favorite racing sportsbooks in the entire valley of Las Vegas, Nevada. We're going to talk about 6 football games, 3 college, 3 pro, in today's 6-pack. And before we jump into that, you'll notice that banner that you've seen at the top of the screen that talks about the free $60 account. And if you click on the link below the video, you'll be able to sign up for a free $60 account, just as it says. And that means you'll be able to use those free $60 on any of Tony's daily packages, any of my daily packages over at DocSports.com if you're not yet a member. It's a great way to give DocSports.com a trial run. Let's get to it, Tony. It's the SEC. It is Kentucky and Tennessee from Knoxville. Tennessee about a 12.5-point favorite. Total 62.5. And what we have here, Tony, is a defensive-minded coach in Mark Stoops against an offensive-minded coach in Josh Heupel. And the one thing that he's done, Mark Stoops, this year is he's got his team playing the way they should on the defensive side of the football. Maybe they lack at times on offense. They don't have the same recruiting ability as some of these other SEC powers, so they don't have the same talent on the offensive side. But they've covered all 3 times they've been a dog this year. And now they're going to go up against a team that, I don't know, might be looking ahead a little bit to the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, this is an interesting game, especially the total at 61, because the season average for Tennessee is only 11 points shy of the total in this game, Scott. Yeah. And, of course, number 1 scoring offense in the country, Tennessee. They got a big win over Alabama. And, of course, going up against the number 9 rated defense, scoring allowed only 16 points a game. Something's got to give in this one, Scott. And I'll tell you what I think it is. Kentucky's got their quarterback now healthy. This is a quarterback that a friend of yours, Mel Kiper,
that's right,
is touting as the first quarterback taken in the NFL draft this year for Kentucky. Hell of a player. They've had a few setbacks, but he wasn't playing in those games. So now he's back and healthy. I think this is a big challenge for Tennessee. My problem is, in terms of the side play here, my power rating is 12.5 points.
On a neutral?
On a neutral.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right. So, I'm thinking about that going, wow. I don't know. And, of course, at the end of the day here, I think Stoops is savvy enough to hold Tennessee down a little bit. I like the under 60. What about 60? It was 63.5.
Yeah, 62.5.
Yeah, it's getting steamed down a little bit. I don't know if I want to lay 12.5 with Tennessee with everything they got going on deck here.
I lean to the Cats. As I mentioned, they've covered their last 3 when they've been an underdog, when they've been getting points. And I think Stoops will be able to get his team right to be able to keep this one within that number. Yeah. Maybe not win the game outright, but be able to hang that number of 12.5.
Well, they're going to have to play defense in order to stay within that. And I think they will. I think they're really a really good defensive team, and a lot of people don't realize that. When you think of SEC, maybe outside of Georgia, you don't think about defense.
Right.
We haven't seen any from Alabama this year.
Exactly.
Tennessee, we haven't seen a whole lot out of them either. But Kentucky, one of the better defensive teams in the SEC. Keep your eye on them.
I wanted to say something, not to take anything away from Tennessee, not to take it, when you beat Alabama, you beat Alabama, no matter how you did it. It's a good football team, obviously. Yeah. But it took, Alabama to have their worst game discipline-wise and overtime to be able to get past Bama on their home field.
Well, they had 17 penalties or something?
17, 18 penalties.
It's
been probably the least disciplined Alabama version that we've seen since Nick Saban's been there. So it took a total meltdown by Bama, and still Tennessee had to go to overtime to win by 3 on their home field. So, again, I'm not taking too much away from them, but I'm like, maybe they're just slightly overvalued in this game against a good Kentucky defense.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think Kentucky is a top 15 team in the country. I really do, with a healthy quarterback. And I think a lot of points, it's right on the number, but I do think if Kentucky's going to give them a ball game, it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball. And they do a nice job of balancing their attack. They got their running back healthy. They got a quarterback that can throw it. If you can kind of go 50-50 run and pass here and keep Tennessee off the field a little bit and hurt their rhythm, that's kind of why I like the under. We're going to switch gears to the Big Ten. Ohio State, Penn State. Ohio State, I just looked on the board here at Red Rock Sportsbook, up from 15.5, steamed up to 16 here at Stations Casinos, and the total is 61. Interesting. I just was looking at this game a little bit today. I know I'm going to hand it off to you, and I'm glad I'm passing the baton to you on this one. But I was looking at the last 6 games for Ohio State, 54, 49, 49, 52, 77, 45 points.
That's all.
Offensively, Stroud's making a case for the Heisman. Yeah. They did struggle a little bit in the first half last week against Iowa.
I thought you were going to say during the national anthem.
No, yeah. They were laying 15 and a half in the first half last week, and it was one of my 4-unit plays over at the website. And they managed to get to pick 6 to be ahead 16 at halftime. And Penn State off a little bit of a surprising win in terms of the spread of the score, 45-17 over Minnesota. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I was with you. We were thinking the same thing because I had the Buckeyes as a play too last week. And I said in my analysis, one of the sentences or not paragraph, a couple sentences that I mentioned in my write-up was that I think Ohio State not only wins the game, but they're going to cover the game by multiple scores if they're interested. And then I put ... I believe they'll be interested. They only gave up 3 points as far as the defense is concerned. They ended up winning 54-10, so they did what they thought they would after they got cobwebs out a little bit in that first quarter. As far as Penn State, they've covered 5 of the last 6 against Ohio State. A lot of knocks against James Franklin, and that he's a good coach, but when he steps up in games that really matter, that's when things kind of go south for him. So there's always that in the mix. It's a big line, man. Home and Happy Valley, getting 15, 16 points from the Buckeyes. I know the Buckeyes are great and all that kind of good stuff. The thing about Penn State last week against Minnesota, they were going up against a Minnesota team being led by an inexperienced backup quarterback, and it really did hurt the Golden Gophers, who don't have great depth at the QB spot. But give them credit for pounding Minnesota and taking care of business. Boy, in this particular game, man, I guess it's an ever so slight lean. It's not going to be part of my card, folks, but I'll lean to Penn State plus the points. Just because 16 at Happy Valley, and they've been able to get right.
Are they doing
a
wideout?
State.
Are they doing a wideout?
I would think they would.
Because Franklin, the thing of it is, Franklin needs all the help he can get when it comes to big games.
Absolutely. I'm going to ever so slightly, so slight. It won't be part of my card this week. So let's go to the Big 12 in Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple, where it's Oklahoma State at Kansas State. K-State landed about a point and a half in this one. I've seen as high as 2 during the course of the week. The total in the mid-50s, around 56. I'll say this, last week I do that Saturday night show at the at VSiN Studios, which is right above the sports book at the Circa. And as we're doing the show, we face away from the crowd, and we've got like 40-inch screens in front of us. It's not easy doing a freaking show for 3 hours when you're sweating out games on the TVs in front of you.
But you're famous and you're good, so it's no big deal to this guy.
And I'm sitting there. I didn't have this game tone. Or no, I did. I had a K-State real small.
I had the over.
And okay, well, there you go. And
I was happy.
It's 28-10 Kansas State.
Yeah.
28-10 over TCU. Adrian Martinez got knocked out early, like after 2 passes.
Ow.
He's questionable this week.
Yeah.
Will Howard comes in. I have no problem with that. Will Howard is a good quarterback. So he comes in, and they're up 28-10. He gets injured. Here comes the third string. I've never thrown a pass, exaggerated here, quarterback. And all of a sudden, the mojo switches, the momentum switches. TCU comes back and wins 38-28. Now, Will Howard did come back in that game, but of course the momentum had already changed hands. He's going to play this week, it looks like. I know Adrian Martinez is questionable. Believe it or not, Husker fans, Adrian Martinez has yet to throw an INT, and we're more than halfway through this college football season.
Hang on, let me recover from that.
A little gut punch there to my fellow Husker.
Oh, Lord.
Oklahoma State's weakness is pass defense, Tony.
Yeah.
K-State, though, they want to run first. Your thoughts on this one?
Well, I'll tell you what, I got this power rated Oklahoma State -5.
Okay.
And they're catching points.
Yep.
I trust my numbers this time of year. Early in the year sometimes, we don't trust our numbers. Folks, we have power numbers. We weigh them against the Las Vegas line. And when there's a big discrepancy like this, like 7 points, we circle those, then we go back and reverse handicap them from front to back,
Right.
Because we're betting numbers, not games here. I think Oklahoma State's a real deal. I think they got a hell of a game with Texas. Neither quarterback played that well in that Oklahoma State-Texas game. 35-mile-an-hour winds didn't help when they were throwing, trying to be accurate. But I think Oklahoma State is a contender here this year for a Big 12 title, Scott, and I don't think K-State's all that. If Martinez doesn't play, I definitely would make a little bit stronger move on Oklahoma State. Now, we're taping this on what day of the weekend?
Wednesday afternoon.
Wednesday afternoon. I lose track. But nonetheless, watch the status of Martinez here. I really do. I like this Oklahoma State team, and I think Kansas State peaked way too early, in my opinion. I'm going to grab the points with the Cowboys. We're going to switch gears to the NFL. Wow. I'm going to say wow. If you're a survivor pool guy and you had New England last week,
ouch.
Ouchie.
At least you knew it was over fast.
Yes. I know that over half the field went down in Circus Survivor.
Oh, it's down a minimal amount of...
There was one other one, too, besides New England that went down. Took 75, and 200 were, or 175 were...
Tampa Bay? Carolina? I would imagine that was
Tampa
one of the
Bay.
big ones.
Yeah, the Buccaneers. So, and I'm in a Survivor pool back in Missouri. Started out with 1,170 guys. There were 219 going into Monday night, and now there's 17 left standing, and I'm one of them.
Well, good job.
I was coin flipping whether I'm going to take the Patriots or the Ravens. And during the last 4 minutes of the Ravens game, I'm going, how did I put these guys in a Survivor pool? What was I thinking?
Right.
But nonetheless, there was a lot of surprises last week. It's going to be a good week in the NFL this week, folks. I'm going to have a big, possibly my game of the year this Sunday. But the Raiders taking on the Saints now. Raiders currently 2, total around 49.5. Saints off a bye. Now the Raiders beat up on Houston last week, Scott.
It took a while, but they got there. Yeah.
2 things. Is that a buy sign on the Raiders? And are the Raiders, with only 2 wins, ready to lay points on the road?
I'm looking at the total, so I'm going to ignore the question. I take the easy way out on this particular question.
I'm going to say they're not ready to lay them, but
okay. Well, that's okay. I have no problem with that. I would tend to lean towards your side there in this one. I'm personally not ready to lay points, I don't think, with the Raiders on the road because they got a win over Houston, which wasn't clear cut from the opening kickoff. It took a little bit to get going. But as far as this game is concerned, last year the Raiders would win the close games. This year they're 0-4. When they've in a games that they've lost by 6 points or fewer. When a game has been decided in a close contest, they've been on the wrong side. They've been losing all 4 of those games. What they have done is scored a lot of points of late: 38, 29, and 32 points in the last 3 games. As far as New Orleans is concerned, believe it or not, they're top 10 in both yards rushing and yards passing per game. They're like 8th in both, and we know the Raiders defense has its issues against the pass. Now, as far as New Orleans games, their last 3, they've allowed at least 26 points to each of their last 3 opponents. So you can kind of see where I'm going here. Total's up there. It's 49.5. I think it ends up landing in the 50s, so I'm going to give out an over here between the Raiders and the Saints. But I can't go against you on your call on the Raiders either.
I just don't think they're ready to lay points. Second of all, I think New Orleans is a good teaser option this weekend.
Absolutely.
If you want to get them through 3, through 6, through 7, I mean, those are value numbers right there, and I think it's going to be a ball game. And I do agree with Scott. I would not be surprised to see a low 30, high 20-something type game. 30
for each team.
31 to 28 or one way or the other. You'll take it. But nonetheless, I'm not all in on the Raiders yet.
No, neither am I. They're not going to make the postseason. If I had to call it right now, I'm not shocking anybody with that call.
And let me ask you a question before we get to this next game. We talked earlier in the season doing these videos about how competitive the AFC West was going to be. San Diego's stinking.
Yeah.
Injuries galore. Now they lost Williams.
Bad coaching.
Horrible coaching. Denver, repeat that phrase. Horrible coaching.
Yeah, he might be out. I tell you what, they lose this week, Hackett might be gone.
Yeah, he'll be one and done. They got a lot of money up there. And, of course, then you have the Raiders, who really were expected with, Adams and some additions and a few additions on the defensive side of the ball. McDaniels, this offensive guru, maniac coming in there. And so far, Kansas City is just head and shoulders above everybody. Of course, I'm saying that because I'm a Chiefs fan, but it's the absolute truth. I mean, they just put up 500 and some yards against the number 1 defense on the road last week. But it's interesting how the AFC West was really perceived to just be a knockdown, drag out every week, and all these teams are really going to be good.
It's almost a one-team division right now.
It's almost a one-team division.
And the best division of football, believe it or not, is the NFC East.
That's right.
With the Eagles on top and the Giants right on their tail. We're going to talk about an AFC East game here, and that would be the Jets hosting the Patriots, the surprising Jets. Patriots actually laying a point and a half here, total about 40.5. Man, just terrible news. I hate watching this happen to a young guy who's just busting out in his first, real season with the New York Jets, and that would be the running back, Breece Hall. Yeah. I mean, he is what that offense is all about. I mean, you look at this kid, he's the most dynamic and most important player on this offense so far this season, and now they no longer have him. So you got Zach Wilson, 57% passer, 1 touchdown, 2 picks in 4 games this season, going up against a ticked-off New England defense that I think is going to be coached up by Belichick in the game this week. Pats coming off the ugly, horrible performance. They made one of the worst teams, maybe the worst team in the NFL, look like a good team on Monday night.
Wow.
Talking about the Chicago Bears.
Wow.
And it wasn't a fluke. They got spanked start to finish.
They got to hand it to them.
Can't back the Jets here now that they lost their best player on the offensive side of the football. And I know it's not often these days over the last several years where we say the running back is the most important player on an NFL offense, but in this case, he has been this season as Zach Wilson has tried to get healthy. So, Pats for me, Tony. Your thoughts on this one?
Well, you know what? I like the under. My two-play under.
Yeah.
Under 40.5 right now. And when you lose your running back, bear in mind with these Jets, they're kind of like the Giants. Now, the Giants are 6-1, but they get out-yarded every week. But they find ways to exploit mistakes that other teams make against them.
Yep.
And, they get it done. And there was Peterson made some bad coaching calls last week in that game. I'm not bitter even though I had Jacksonville. Yes, I am bitter. But nonetheless, when it comes to the Jets, bear in mind the last 3 weeks, these Jets are on this win streak and all this, that, and the other. They played backup quarterbacks in all 3 games. Second of all, you just lost your running back, who's a stud. You lost one of the best guards on the offensive line in the NFL. He's out. You got another offensive lineman that's banged up. And what are you going to do to fill the gap? First of all, as Scott mentioned, a very pissed off Patriots defense. They are going to want some redemption here. And I'm going to tell you what Belichick said? We're not losing to the Bears and the Jets in back-to-back weeks, or I'm going to commit suicide. And I'm going to fire my son on the defensive side.
I can see him taking out a few people.
I see him firing his son on the defensive side of the ball. But to replace that, bear in mind, Wilson, their quarterback, the last 2 games, 121 yards and 110 yards passing, no touchdowns. I think they're going to have trouble scoring here. And, we have a little bit of a quarterback controversy in New England. Now, Scott, I don't know if he pulled Mac Jones early in that game because he really looked not 100%. He wasn't sharp. He wasn't as mobile. He was a little hesitant to take off out of the pocket. And I think he put Zappe in there because Belichick doesn't care about feelings. He wants to win games. And I thought the way Jones was kind of not really lethargic, but he just wasn't sharp at all. Bring the hot hand in. Go ahead, get the game back, and say, Mac, we'll see you next week against the Jets.
Get healthy.
Yeah, get healthy. Let's go ahead. So I don't know, but you have a little bit of a quarterback issue there as well. Offensively, they're probably going to have trouble gelling this week. That's why I like the under in that game. We're going to switch gears here and go to the Rams and the 49ers. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, I can barely read my own writing.
And it's Wednesday afternoon.
This is 49ers 1.5 and 43.5, and it's been steamed up here again at Red Rock on the big board here to 2 and 43 now, Scott. There's been a little movement on San Francisco, and why not? I mean, they've got McVay's number big time. They've got a 24-9 win already over the Rams. This has huge implications for this division standings moving forward, especially with Seattle playing a little better than we thought they would in that division. So, and of course, Arizona kind of just, doing what Arizona does, just sucks half the time. You can't, they're an enigma wrapped in a riddle. Nobody can figure them out. Yeah, besides they got a crappy coach. But at the end of the day here, has the Rams, it was a 15-point gap the first game, and it was in San Fran. This is in SoFi.
Right.
Have the Rams done enough in your mind to close that 15-point gap and make this competitive? Because the Niners are going to come here. They're kind of like the Patriots. Their defense got embarrassed. And by the way, at the end of the day, I haven't been real impressed with Stafford this year. Sometimes he looks like he's still wearing that Lions uniform.
That offensive line is hurting. They're 31st in the league running the football.
I know.
You got to be able to run the football somewhat efficiently. I'm not talking about 5 yards per pop. But when Stafford, or kind of he's not as mobile as he used to be.
Right.
And so when you got a guy who's stuck in the pocket like that, you got to be able to run the football at least for like 3.7, 3.8.
At least a threat of a run.
Yeah, exactly. Just an efficient 3.5, a little bit more, 3.7, 3.8 yards per carry. As long as they're efficient yards, you're not running it on 3rd and 8 and getting 3 yards. So he hasn't had that this year. The offensive line has not played well. It's tough to play divisional home dogs. I mean, divisional home dogs have just padded bankrolls for years now. So I'll tell you what I like here, though. You look at what San Francisco's doing, you're right. San Francisco got embarrassed in the second half last week.
Big time.
They're up 13-7 with 8 minutes to go in the second quarter. It's 14-13 at the half. Looks like a typical San Francisco type of football game. And then Mahomes says, hold my beer for a second.
Yeah.
And goes out there and ends up throwing for 423 yards and lights up the defense. They score 44 points against San Francisco.
And they couldn't stop Hardman.
But I know what the problem is in two locales now. Carolina wins last week 21-3. San Francisco falls apart for the first time on defense, loses 44-23. You know what the problem is? McCaffrey. When he played for Carolina, they couldn't win. He plays for San Francisco, they get clobbered. Carolina wins. I'm joking, by the way. I'm joking. But anyway.
Well, he knew like 5 plays going into that game. They kept running the same 5 plays, and he kept getting yards on Kansas City's defense running the same 5 plays.
We should ask Chuck Esposito. I don't want to be morbid here or anything, but he's going to post an over-under on the amount of games McCaffrey's going to play in a healthy sense for San Francisco.
Yeah.
Having said that, I do think you're going to see a fired-up San Francisco defense. They're going up against a weak offensive line. They're going up against a weak offense. KC is not weak, as we know. This week, he's going up against the Rams offense, and I think the defense will be able to be much better this time around. And as far as the Rams are concerned, because they have to win with defense and because the offense isn't great this year, I think they're going to be a lower scoring game for the rest of the season. And at home, they're on a 17-5 under run.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a little bit more defense than we saw from San Fran last week.
Yeah, both teams' strengths is defense,
Exactly.
and in a big game like this, that's what you play to.
Totals 43. I like an under between the Niners and the Rams. I got to show them something, by the way, because no matter what happens, there you go. It's right, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
That's probably the most true thing we've said all day.
That's going to be the epitaph on my tombstone.
There's truer words have never been spoken is the phrase I was looking for.
Especially in this town.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, Tony, I know you got a big game going in the NFL, college also. I've got a 7-star going this week in college. 8-1 this year on my top-rated plays in college football, including had an 8-star ACC game of the year last week, 2 weeks ago, with Syracuse over NC State, but 7-star conference game of the month. Had Boise State last week. They did everything they could to give that game away as a 7-star Mountain West game of the month. And I got to tell folks, I'm down there doing the show, and I got the TV in front of me, and it was a late starting game, so I'm having to watch it for most of the 3-hour show. And I'm doing everything I can not to throw things at the TV screen as we're doing the show with the cameras on. And Matt Humans is kind of laughing at me at breaks. And I saw something last week where there was first of all, Boise's outgained Air Force 350 to 130. Yeah. But it's 19-7 because they're kicking field goals.
Yep.
You know what happens usually.
Yep.
So it's 19-14 now. There's 4 minutes to go in the game. Air Force 4th and 5, punting the ball from midfield. I'm looking, I say, okay, they just punted the ball, went into the end zone, touchback. And the next thing I know, Air Force is lining up for 1st and 10 at Boise's 40. So I go back and I look and I see they show the replay. There were 2 players for Boise State's return team, wearing the same number on the field at the same time. Flag comes out. Now, Boise hung on. But can you imagine the beat on that one if Air Force goes down the field and scores in the final couple minutes because of that? Anyway, having said that.
If he wasn't on the air, he'd be doing that. Yes. Trust me, I'll tell you that.
Or dipping down beneath the counter, grabbing a couple of the shots there if they would have lost that game.
Just the off-color comment. I find, and I had a substantial move last week on Wyoming.
Okay, nice.
Playing a team that was on their 4th-string quarterback. Right. I see that sometimes sports books, when it comes to the Mountain West Conference, you would think we're right in the heart of Mountain West country. Right. You can find some value in these Mountain West lines. I mean, So last week, that game too, I really almost took Boise. I'll tell you what, they kind of fell asleep at the wheel in the getaway car. You kind of want to look at those numbers and look at those injury reports because they don't react to an injury report like that versus they do the SEC or the Big 10 or the Big 12.
Listen, there's only 8,000 people in the stands in the Pac-12 in California, not Washington, Utah, and Oregon. I don't want to hurt those schools. But you look at Pac-12, there's 10, 15,000 people in the stand. Look at Stanford, UCLA. As far as Mountain West, 10, 15,000 people.
I thought we were at the height of COVID and they were letting people in the stadium or something. UCLA
I think at Palo Alto, they're practicing for social distancing again, even though it's over. But anyway, don't forget that $60 free account if you're not yet a member at DocSports.com. It's a great way to give it a trial run. You click on the link below the video and you sign up for the free $60. You can use those free $60 on any of Tony or my daily packages, anybody else at the roster at DocSports.com. Check out Tony's work this week, mine also. Daily stuff in the NBA. Of course, the World Series begins on Friday.
We're Dick Houston, minus 200 to win
there
it
you
all.
go. We're looking
free pick. I put it on Twitter.
Okay.
I put it on Twitter. And by the way, our
You're
Twitter,
not fearing Bryce Harper and Zach Wheeler. And...
Okay, if they don't win with Wheeler, they're liable to sweep them.
True.
I'm telling you.
And he's got to go against Verlander.
What's Nola done in the postseason to raise your eyebrows? Just saying.
Struck out his brother.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, good.
He's Tony George. I'm Scott Spreitzer. Let's put him in the win column, everybody.